Hey, Crystal Maiden here for part 4 of Minish Cap. So now that we've got the grip ring from that Dooku scrub, we can climb the highest wall that the game has to offer. And I really hate how slow you climb. It really feels like you're just having the game padded out. And also it's really annoying trying to dodge the boulders when you climb so slowly. You climb faster going to the side, so you're more likely to dodge the boulders if you go to the side. Obviously you answer neither because she'll think that you're trying to scam her, because she knows which one you actually threw, somehow. It's kind of weird how... What exactly does she do all day? She appears when you throw a bomb into her spring, but what was she doing before that? Does she have her own normal life in the fairy world? And is she just summoned against her will when you throw a bomb into her spring and she somehow knows about it? It's like, why don't you ever interrupt her from her bowling with that? And like, it's pretty obvious that she was doing something before you summoned her. Like, why doesn't she ever appear in, like, I don't know, a shower cap or something? These raindrops are obviously an obstacle, so you gotta avoid them. You may recognize this song. It's actually a remix of the song that plays Under the Rain in Link to the Past. And despite the GBA sound quality, I think it sounds pretty good. Like, I think Minish Cap's soundtrack is definitely a lot more obvious that it's from the Game Boy Advance sound chip. Because A Link to the Past songs, they sound exactly the same as they did in the Super Nintendo version. I don't really notice a difference. But with the Minish Cap soundtrack, it's a lot more obvious that it's from a Game Boy Advance. And this isn't really to its detriment because there are a lot of great songs in this game. I like the whole rainy mountain thing. Although it's really weird that it's only one side of the mountain that's raining. And it's always under the rain. Like, all the time. Like, you don't have to be an expert in how weather works to know how implausible that is. This puzzle annoys me because you're forced to do a lot of backtracking to it feels like padding to me. Also, it's annoying when you unintentionally roll into a wall and you don't really go anywhere. The boomerang is pretty useful in that you can actually save on bombs. Like, if there's a switch away from you, you can actually save a bomb by just throwing the boomerang at it instead of wasting a bomb throwing it at the switch. So the boomerang comes in handy in this room, because you can just, like, if you didn't have the boomerang at this point you could throw a bomb, but because I have a boomerang I just saved a bomb. And it's good that there's a shop that you can buy more bombs with in this area because, well, it's at the base Mount Criddle, but still, it's good that you can easily buy more without going back to Hyrule Town, because you're gonna need a lot of bombs in this game. I got stuck on this puzzle when I was younger, because if you push the boulder into the wrong place, then you're not gonna be able to get it out from that corner. Because you won't be able to push it out of that wall, and you won't be able to use it anymore, and you'll have to leave the room and come back. Like, it's a good thing that you can come back into the room and you'll be back in the same position. Because otherwise, the game would be made unwinnable, and that wouldn't be very good design at all. Also, with the boomerang, you can make these things more easy to deal with, because you can stun them before they start flying around everywhere. Isn't it lazy that they have the exact same music for Mallory's Mines that they did for Minish Village. At least they bothered to give the villagers a different sprite from the Forest Minish. There's nothing in that house. There's not even a Minish in there. All of the houses are empty and useless. And just like in Minish Village, there's no actual facilities dedicated to the Minish. Like there's no clinic, there's no grocery store, there's no school or library or anything. Like Hyrule Town is easily the village that feels the most alive for top-down Zelda games, because there's so many different human facilities that have a purpose outside of just gameplay. Like there's a school, there's a library, there's all sorts of different stuff. Like there's an inn. And now we come to the Cave of Flames. It's not often that you go to a Zelda dungeon and it calls itself a cave. Well, it didn't really matter that I threw it further than I thought I would, because the blast radius was surprisingly big. But I got flashbacks to the Color Dungeon Link's Awakening, where I kept throwing the colored balls too far and they wouldn't land in the holes. But that wasn't a problem here. It's kind of annoying getting the compass before you get the map, because you can see the treasure, but you can't really see where it is. I never really make use of the compass, though, because I just explore all the dungeons anyways. And the compass was made more useful in later games, because in Zelda 1, it didn't show you where the treasure chests were, it just showed you where the boss was. I love this part. Like, I love how fast you go, and and Eslo is so... I mean, I guess I don't blame him. Because realistically, if you were in that situation, you'd probably be freaked out too. But it's still... I just love how fast the minecarts go, because it makes it feel like a fun ride. And like, if they move slower, then it would kind of be boring going through them. So in order to progress with this room, you gotta kill all the enemies. Not to open a door, but to make a Minish portal appear. And thankfully, you aren't forced to sit through a really long cutscene like with all the other Minish portals. You can just instantly mash the R button and go straight to being tiny. You can't progress in this room because you'll fall into that hole like it's a bottomless pit. And thankfully, you spawn just outside of it rather than being stuck there forever. And because the minecart tracks are too high up, you can't really go above them when you're tiny. Oh, a fog effect. That's not annoying. Thankfully, the fog isn't too thick, so that it's hard to see where you are. I think the fog is supposed to be a reflection of how hot it is because of the lava. And unlike in Wind Waker, when you fall into the lava in this game, you just act like you fell into a bottomless pit. You immediately respawn from where you last were on the floor. So it's not like you fall into lava and then you have to restart the entire room again. Thankfully, these platforms respawn, because otherwise it would be impossible to get to get back to the entrance to this room without, like, respawning, like restarting the whole dungeon again. These are called Rollobites. You attack them and then you can pick them up and throw them into holes. They're sort of like the enemies you threw around in Link's Awakening's Color Dungeon. And this room has a pretty funny glitch to it, where if you attack a Rollobite, carry it up the stairs, and jump into this tornado while carrying the Rollobite, what'll happen is that Link will drop the Rollobite, but the game will think that it's still at the same height as the ledge. So you won't be able to interact with it at all, and it'll be able to move everywhere in the screen, including through walls. Because apparently they didn't program the walls to be solid on the upper level. I don't know. It can be knocked back to the floor with an attack from the upper level. So that's good, because you can potentially have to leave the room and come back if you haven't solved the puzzle for it yet, because all the Rollobites are either in the lava or above the screen. Yeah, that's a pretty weird glitch. I like the gimmick of this dungeon. Like, I like the whole theme of it. Well, I like the theme of it too. Like, the music is alright. But the whole minecart is a pretty fun gimmick, I think. You know, it's not really that hard of a puzzle. Like, you see minecart tracks that you can't really do anything with, and you just hit a lever, and now you can do something with them. And again, I love the fact that you can find heart pieces in the dungeons. These enemies are annoying because you can't attack them while they're in their spiky form. So a good way to deal with them is to hit them with bombs, because that'll stun them and damage them. And so it's a good idea to place a bomb right as they start showing up, because then you'll be able to, because they all surround you, but it's less likely that you'll be guaranteed to get hit if you place a bomb right away. So now you've got the Cane of Passy. And what it does is that it flips things over. It's a good thing that Eslo told you to do that, because otherwise you would have never guessed that you could make something result from firing the Cane of Passy into a hole. Because that seems kind of unintuitive otherwise. So yeah, I think it's, while it's lame compared to the other invincibility items, it is a pretty unique gimmick. Like, a cane flips things over, and that allows for a lot of unique puzzles. Like, you never see a concept like this ever again. Gotta be careful around the traps there, because, well, obviously they can deal damage to you, and you gotta time it moving exactly right so that you don't get hit by them while you're trying to go to the left. Now you come here, and now that you're big enough, these guys actually notice you and they start running after you. But you can just go into these little parts and you can dodge their attacks. And it would be annoying if you hit the lever before... It would be annoying if you hit the lever and then shrunk yourself, because then you have to unshrink yourself and hit the lever again. This puzzle is kind of annoying because, again, you can easily underestimate how far you're going to throw the Rollbite. I used to think that if you kept pulling something until you turned red, then eventually Link will stop pulling it. But it didn't happen in my playthrough. So maybe it's just a graphical effect that doesn't really mean anything, I don't know. Either way, his face should not be turning that red. I mean, I know it's cartoony, but it's still kind of disconcerting how he turns that red. Well, at least I got a useful Kindstone piece this time. I mean, the red Kindstones are technically the most valuable ones because they give you the best rewards. But you're given so many of them that you really never find yourself needing them, you know? Whereas with the green Kindstones, sure, they give you the lamest rewards, but there's 3 different varieties of them and you can't buy a specific variety, so you're always going to find yourself in a situation where you don't have this one specific variety most of the time that you need it. So a green Kindstone is a much better reward in the end, because of how common the other Kindstones are. Like, you'd expect the green kind stones to be the most common, but they're not. Like, occasionally an enemy will drop a kind stone, but it's always going to be a green one. It's really hard not to get hit when you're going back from here. I managed to do it when I was no-hit running this dungeon, but it requires really precise timing. Like, I love the puzzles in this dungeon. You use the painted passy on a hole, and then you can jump out of it and then ride a tornado. Like, I love how, like, you would ride a tornado in Mount Crinel, and that gimmick continues over to this dungeon. And better yet, this isn't the only time that you'll be using these things in the game. It's not a one-time gimmick. Like, a lot of Zelda games will restrain a puzzle to one dungeon and one dungeon only. But in this game, that isn't really the case a lot of the time. Like, I just love the way this game's dungeons are designed. They're so memorable, and the puzzles are so fun and creative. A lot of people don't like going back to this game because they feel like it's too much padding between the dungeons, and there aren't enough dungeons. But Zelda games aren't just about the dungeons, to me. It's about getting a sense of accomplishment from getting treasure and completing tasks and stuff. So I don't really mind that while it takes a long time to get the best parts of the game, and there aren't that many dungeons, it's still a great game to play. I figured that there was no point in wasting time getting that red portal to show up as early as I possibly could have, cause why go there twice when I could just kill two birds with one stone and get it once? Not that I'm ever going to be using it though. It is convenient that they have those red portals in the first place. Like, handheld games tend to introduce a lot of conveniences because they're streamlining it. They're making it easier to pick up and play whenever you want. Which makes me wonder why you're not allowed to save whenever you want in Link Between Worlds, since that's a handheld game. And that seems to be the opposite of streamlining it. But whatever. It's just good that they introduce conveniences like that. And then they carry over to the console games. So they make the console games more convenient. This boss is kind of annoying because, look, I'm clearly using the painted passy on him, but it's not affecting him. And, oh, but now it affects him. And I hate being burned with fire in this game because it forces Link to run around like an idiot, and he's not able to do anything. He's not even able to activate a screen transition when he's in that state. Like, you get set on fire and you run towards a door and you can't exit it. You can't exit the room while you're on fire. That's really obnoxious. I love how fast you run when you're on fire. Like, it makes me wish there was a dash feature like that in the game. And the amount of damage, I didn't deal much damage to him the last time, but he sank into the lava anyways. And that sort of shows off how the boss fights in this game are more scripted. Like in Link to the Past, you could just constantly attack a boss and then it would die. It didn't have multiple phases to it where you were restricted to only attacking it for a certain amount of damage and then it would go to the next phase. Like, I don't like how like, sometimes it feels like you can't do a thing where you attack the boss as much as possible for as much damage as possible and kill it early before one of its next phases show up. So that's a pretty annoying boss. I mean, I like how you can attack the fire and get rid of it, even though that doesn't make any sense. And it can even, you can even get hearts from attacking the fire, which is good. Cause it's good when boss arenas have a way to restore your health. But I'm glad that boss is over, because it was kind of annoying. See you in the next part.